I was so humbled meeting with all of these chief executives from around the world and learning from them and their years and years of experience and their insights. And they were incredibly open and forthright and forthcoming in their information. If you are from Europe, the United States, or Japan, where growth rates in your domestic market are low, if growing at all, then you have no choice but to go global to find high growth markets. Mergers and acquisitions is just a way of going global, and it's a mechanism for taking an organization across borders. So it really became clear that there were other mechanisms that would work equally as well. Acquisition was seen as being the only way to really have a transformational event for the organization. If you buy something that gives you a good geographic footprint, you have an immediate footprint throughout the world in the markets that you want to be in. Acquisition success rates seem to have gone up. In the past, you're looking at acquisition success rates that are really 50-50, if you're lucky. And in these cases, CEOs and senior executives were reporting that their success rates were much higher. Now, you could say, well, of course they'd say that, but I also had a lot of executives say when they really screwed up, they'd say, boy, we really messed that up. So they tended to be very honest and open about things. I think a lot of it has to do with why they were buying. 10 years ago, KPMG did some research and found that 40% of companies were buying for consolidation. This research found that 40% of companies were buying to extend their overseas footprint. They were buying for market entry. And in those cases, they really left employees alone and gave them the resources and the brands and the product to put into a new market. And in that respect, they tended to go in with a lighter touch. They tended to do less to the existing organization and work with what that organization had. The one industry that I found was fascinating was the auto industry. We interviewed Ford about their joint venture in Turkey and their joint venture in Russia. And we spoke to auto experts in China. And we also spoke to another German company that operates in the auto industry in China. What became very clear with everyone we spoke to in the auto industry was the rise of the Chinese competitor. And repeatedly, people in the industry said it took Japan 20 years to learn how to export successfully. It took Korea 10 years how to learn successfully, and they learned from Japan. And the Chinese, when they start exporting, will do it in 5. They've learned from everybody. And what's been fascinating is to see how they operate their joint ventures in China. If you take the SAIC, the Shanghai Automotive Industry Corporation, they have joint ventures with Volkswagen, they have a joint venture with General Motors, and in the truck division, they have a joint venture with Volvo, and also another one with Iveco. What they do is they rotate their senior executives and their middle managers from the different joint ventures. A manager, for instance, will work in General Motors for a couple years, then they'll move him to Volvo, then they'll move him to Volkswagen. So at the end of 8 or 10 years, you have a manager who's learned best practices from some of the most well-respected and profitable and well-run automobile manufacturers in the world, and they all work for the same company. Now, you can't find that in other companies because most companies don't have joint ventures with that variety of partner. They have ended up with some amazingly well-qualified and knowledgeable staff members and managers that are running the business. For them, they really just now need to go out and buy brands. And then they will have all the in-house knowledge they need to go and manage those brands successfully. That seems to be the way China is going, especially with the purchase of Rover. The more brands that come up for sale, the more I think you're going to see Chinese firms, with the blessing of the Chinese government, come in and start to become market leaders and brand leaders in certain lines of automotives. If I were a Western company, I would be really quite concerned, because they're in emerging markets, they're in high growth areas, and they're running like they are growing at 15% a year. And if you're turning over $40 billion a year and you're growing at 15%, that's quite significant.